All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning in to the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? So, what I want to call today's podcast is the only one you're competing with is yourself. So, I'm going to go back to when I was younger and being obsessed with playing sports. My mother loved sports. My dad was an athlete, so it was just a natural thing for me to start playing sports at a very young age. And then my mother and father got divorced. So my mother, I think to fill the void, started to join me up with all different teams. It started with football, Pop Warner, soccer, even floor hockey, tennis. I wrestled. I sucked at boxing. I say I played baseball. I didn't play organized basketball as much, even though I went to St. Joe's, which is one of the that's where they did the movie Hoop Dreams, which I was pretty decent in basketball. I was just kind of short, but I could jump really high. Still can. But what I learned over the years was one is I almost found myself hating to lose more than I enjoyed winning. When I'd win all the time, that really, I didn't care really. It was like, yeah, we won. Unless we won something very big like a tournament, something like that. But winning didn't really, it was great. I almost expected myself to win. But if I lost, I was insane. I literally even cry privately, have temper tantrums. I, I even, this went into, even after I got out of sports, I just lifted weights in my 20s, and my ex-wife was obsessed with winning as well. And they used to call us the sore loser family, even when we had kids. But me and her hated to lose, even if we got together to say go. Our family has this thing once a year. They do bowling. We don't even play in a bowling team, but we almost won it a couple times because we're pretty good athletes, both of us. Whatever. I don't care if we got together with other couples and they would do different games. We just hated losing. I even started a clothing line. I've said this before on my podcast called Sore Loser Wear. It's a clothing line for people who hate to lose. Regardless, what's my slogan? It doesn't matter if you win or lose as long as you come in first. And I just actually heard I watched a movie actually. What's it called? Goalie. And he said something in the movie I thought was quite interesting is that winners want the clock to run out and losers always want more time. I found that very interesting. But back to competing, and I hated to lose. So playing sports, what I loved about what I was doing was I was playing team sports like football, baseball, what else was I playing? Soccer, and like even floor hockey or whatever sport, volleyball I'd even jump in and out of. I love the team sports. I miss that more than probably anything in my life is jumping in a bus with all the guys and becoming a part of a team and a part of a family and all that. God, I miss that. Like going to practice every day, seeing everyone, competing against your fellow, your teammates, and then going to compete against strangers. I loved it. I just absolutely love it, and I miss it. But then I loved playing individual sports, mainly wrestling and tennis. Like I said, I boxed, but I sucked at it. But what I learned with those type of sports, wrestling and tennis, for instance, which I know those two sound kind of far, like not have a lot in common, but they do for me, was I had nobody else to blame. When you lose in an independent sport, or that you're just like, if you play golf or if you ever play tennis, like I said, or you play, I don't care if you go swimming or if you even run, do marathons, decathlons, whatever, you're going against a time sometimes in those. But when you're competing against someone and it's you versus them and you lose, you lost, man. There's no saying, oh man, this guy blew this catch, this guy struck out, or my pitcher stunk. If you're in baseball, football, our defense, the whole defense or the offensive line, or you can't do that. And that's the one thing I loved about playing sports one-on-one. But regardless if I was playing a team sport or individual sport one-on-one, I realized at the end of the day, I wasn't competing against that other person. I was always competing against myself. And what I had to learn was I just had to realize when practicing, because practice is where it's all at. Am I constantly upping my game? Am I improving the way I should be improving? Am I sleeping right? Am I eating right? Is my mind there? Am I doing this Because the truth is we're all going to lose. I don't care who the hell you are. I know Rocky Marciano won undefeated, but I think in his past he even lost. But for the most part, our losses make us who we are. That, it's I always say it's all about the beat down. That's what makes you tougher. Every beating that you catch. I used to say every beating I caught in my life, which I caught a lot of beatings fighting when I was younger, it made me literally that much stronger. Every beating I gave, which I'd given a lot of beatings, I'm not going to lie, that made me that much weaker. It didn't make me tougher. That was just my theory. But when it came down to me, and this goes for life, forget sports as I got older, even if I was making a film or writing a book or doing a podcast, I got to realize, I understand there's people out there that are doing a much better job than me at marketing or, even their podcast or making better movies than me, I guess, society would say, or I would say. The truth was, it doesn't really matter. I guess it matters if you're going to make movies, let's say, hypothetically, and you want to make a movie for the masses and you want to make a living at it, yes, it 100% matters. Don't get me wrong on that point. But again, when you're competing against yourself or wanting to do the best you can do, you've got to go really and figure out, how do I improve? How do I become better than I am? And a lot of that, I believe, is mental, for one. And I don't think even, most people always say it's mental. You hear all these athletes, coaches, trainers, whatever say, it first starts with mental, and I believe that. It all really starts, too, with building confidence to believe you can do great things, regardless what it is, right? And, when it comes to competition, and you don't realize, too, a lot of times you're not even competing with others. You're just constantly competing with yourself. And I think that goes for emotionally, too. Now, if you're, I wanted to do actually a podcast on this, is like, think like an athlete. Because a lot of athletes, as much as they're team-orientated, they're selfish. And I don't mean that in a bad way. For them to achieve greatness, they had a step above and beyond what everybody else, in their environment or their team or whatever they were doing. That's how you become a pro. You don't fall into the norm. They figure out a way, and I'm sure a lot of it's genetics too, but they figure out a lot of times, how to be faster, stronger, could be quicker. It could be whatever the case may be. They just start to rise, above the rest. And if you want to rise above the rest, you have to almost think like that. You really do, because a lot of us, I think, we're programmed to fall into place and kind of, I'm not going to say be ordinary, but not kind of be exceptional. Or be exceptional at different times, or like improve, but then kind of level off, if that makes sense. So you see that sometimes even with, it could be high school sports. Then there's another level in college. Then there's another level in professional sports or in the Olympics. You have different levels. Some go beyond. What's really quite interesting a lot of times is when you see underachievers, it could be like Tom Brady, I'll just use him for example, is go well and beyond even what they think they were going to become or what they would do. And I'm here to tell you, a lot of times you may not always be the strongest dude, the fastest dude, maybe even not even the smartest dude, but you figure out where your strengths are and you figure out a way to make it work for yourself. That's what I kind of mean when I say competing with yourself. You almost have to look at going up against yourself and say, okay, you're there, I'm here, how do I improve? Don't worry about the guy you're playing next week, or even if you're not playing even sports or at your company, like saying, he's in this position, I want to be in his position, how do I beat him out of this position? Or how do I go, any of that shit. I'm talking you're sitting across literally from yourself. And you're like, how do I beat you? How do I keep improving? So once you, and a lot of that's confidence, but once you start to constantly test yourself and push yourself and become self-aware of what's working and not working for you on every level, you'd be shocked at what you start to evolve into. Because a lot of us are only looking at our competitors, which is fine. right? Or how to compete or how to do certain things. And I get it. That's all part of it too. But back to you just personally, like an athlete saying, and again, that doesn't mean you have to train like an athlete. I'm not telling you to be an athlete. This could be for the average Joe out there, whatever he's doing. A lot of those athletes, just like yourself, were told they were nobodies. They're never going to make it to, the college, or they're never going to make it to the pros, or, all these different types of things. What led them to where they're at? And what led them is, well, like I said, confidence, but it's believing in yourself and competing. If you watch people a lot of times, if you see documentaries on stuff on where they started, and the younger they go back, it's amazing on what they went throughout their life to get to where they want to be. And if you look at it, they're competing not only with themselves, but everything in life they're competing with. They have all these different challenges. It could be financial. It can be emotional. It can be their parents knocking them down or building them up, whatever, or just them not having the resources to maybe that other people do, or whatever the case may be. But you have to look at yourself, and you have to compete, I believe, against yourself to improve. You have to keep pushing yourself. No one is going to do it for you. No one is going to do your push-ups. The one thing I learned when I was younger, which I think shocked people a lot of times, because I've discussed this in my podcast previously, is I went from very small to very big in a matter of a short amount of time, a couple years. And everybody, including my mother, I don't know if she believes me anymore, thought I was on steroids, which I was never on steroids. But I did go from like 135, 138 pounds to like 210 pounds in like a year and a half to 2 years, maybe less. And then a couple years later, I'm almost like 240, 235, 240. The rumor that I know buzzed everywhere was steroids. And I knew it was, for one, because everybody kept coming up to me and asking me what supplements or what steroids or growth hormone are you taking? And I used to say, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I know nothing of steroids. For one, I'm definitely afraid of needles. Two, I don't trust pills. So I'm already out on both of those. Now, if you can eat a sandwich maybe and get on steroids, like if eat pasta, pizza, or Italian food, I would have probably been a steroid guy, because that's one thing. But I'm definitely not shooting. I don't trust anything. I just don't trust needles. And I know as I get older, I'm going to probably have to go to the doctors more. That doesn't mean I can't give blood or that type of thing, or take a shot, even though I don't like shots, but I don't even get shots anymore. But in popping pills, I never trust a pill unless it's a Flintstone vitamin. That's just my own thing. But what people used to always say, because they used to say, Rich, also besides, are you on steroids, or rumors are going around? And I used to say to anybody, I'll test anytime. You want to bet me any amount of money, I'll go in for a test. But I don't even think my mother believed me at times, or my family members, which was fine. But what happened with me, which I'm going to share, is when it came to me wanting to be big and strong, a lot of guys thought I was doing it to go into bodybuilding. But I have a real bad scar on my stomach, so my abs look distorted, actually, the more ripped they got. So that was out, and I was not interested in dieting at all. What I was interested in is getting very big and very strong. And every time I went into the gym, I had different types of workout partners. I was fortunate to be around some professional bodybuilders, professional wrestlers, professional arm wrestlers, professional athletes, because I was bouncing between Chicago and Florida. And I was in Florida's heyday, even with college athletes. And I go to different gyms, Worlds and Golds, and run into all these different people, which was amazing. And I learn and study them. But again, I didn't get caught up in competition now from looking like competing in a sport, or even, I even had professional wrestlers. When I say professional wrestlers, I meant the guys in the WWE. Is that the WWF too? Those guys. And I would even work out with them. I wasn't in it for that. I was competing against myself every day to go in there to be stronger. That's, and maybe eat more, and just destroy myself to build myself up. It was just me versus me. And I had workout partners that were somewhere, stronger than me. But then after a while, I was almost like the strongest guy in the gym, or one of them. And the only ones I was really competing against were other guys who were on steroids, which was fine. And I didn't care, and I think some of them thought I was on or I wasn't on. I didn't care. I wasn't necessarily looking at competing against them, squatting, 500 pounds for reps, deadlifting 500 pounds, or all these different types of things, bench pressing how many times over 400, all those type of things. I didn't care how many times they were doing it. Sure, it would affect me and be like, wow, I'd like to do that as much as them or that. But the truth was, I only had in my mind every time I went in, I had to beat myself. That's who I was competing against, is me. So when you go to work every day, or if you go to the gym every day, or whatever you do every day, learn to improve yourself. And I think a lot of times once you improve yourself, others are going to either improve around you or match you or what. You want to inspire others, I guess. And, a lot of times, as you know, sometimes, like if you take professional athletes, sometimes a great one will go to a team and it seems like their level rises everybody else's level up. But then sometimes it's interesting, you'll see a superstar go to a team and instead of them becoming better, they're worse. So in my opinion, I don't give a shit about that because most of us are not a team. You're your own team. And you have to realize if there's just you have all these different strengths again in different areas. If you can learn to combine all those to keep evolving, making yourself a better, stronger person mentally and physically. And again, I just did a podcast on be your own guinea pig. You've got to study yourself and see what's working best for you. There's so many things that you may be missing out on. You don't even realize it because you're distracted or you're looking at everybody else or you're busy doing stupid shit. And if you want to be a competitor or you want to evolve and go, beyond what you are now, you're going to have to learn a lot more about yourself than you probably don't even realize. I talk about that all the time, is a lot of us don't really know who the hell we are. For one is we never pushed ourselves sometimes as far as we think we could go. We've also never discovered a lot of our true strengths because we just didn't take the time to learn them or build up or learn certain things to go toward them. So I'm going to leave that at that. But yeah, please, you'd be shocked again at what you can do in your life. So I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, you might want to check out my YouTube channel. I do a lot of different things fitness related there. And I also travel all over North America, so I give you insight on some of my favorite locations as far as my favorite restaurants, coffee houses, gyms, things in that nature. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. And don't drive yourself nuts sometimes, because I think sometimes, and I discussed this in my past podcasts, is we quit on ourselves sometimes way too early. And I've seen this throughout my life. A lot of guys used to have incredible talents or could be so much more than they were, and I don't think they realize that, for one. And two is they sold themselves short. And when people get around me, hopefully they say this about me, is I always want to inspire people to be whatever they're trying to be, or be the best they can be truly, and believe in themselves and compliment them. I goof around and throw digs like anybody else with my friends. But my friends, hopefully my colleagues, family members know I'm always there for them. And I think it's not just about seeing the best in them, because that gets a little bullshitty. Like, oh yeah, you're a great person and you're a great dad. You're a great grandfather. You're a great brother. You're always there and this and that. We all get that shit, right? But I'm talking about people that really don't realize all their strengths. Like, even if they're overweight, they don't realize by losing some weight and doing certain things can give them a lot of muscle. Or if they're too thin, they don't realize just by changing their diet a little bit and doing some type of weightlifting or whatever, how much strength or how gifted their genetics really are, because either they were told they didn't have genetics, or they didn't believe in themselves, or they may have never even did anything, physical. For instance, I've been doing these YouTube videos on trying to tell people you don't realize how physically gifted you are because you never really went after anything physical. A lot of people, especially adults that never played sports in their past or never worked out, a lot of people I know as they get older that never did that, they start to discover all their strengths. Like, a lot of them end up doing triathlons and marathons and yoga teachers and Pilates teachers, or, trainers. They just didn't know they had it in them. So don't sell yourself short and don't get caught up in the past, all right? Especially with competition, because you are not that same person. Even yesterday to today, you're not that same person. You have to realize you have new knowledge today. You've probably forgot things as well. Every day you're a new person. So, and you're evolving constantly. So don't forget that as well. All right, take care. And if you're traveling, safe travels.